Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show. And in this episode, we are going to be discussing Women in the Dunes, which is a classic Japanese film, which is actually the Patreon winner of the last month. Every month, our patrons get to vote between four movies. Usually there's a theme for the four movies. This was a little bit different. This was like four random movies that were just kind of on the to watch list, and this is the one they picked. So this is what won, Women in the Dunes. So that's what we're going to talk about. We'll start spoiler free as we always do, and then we will warn you before we go into spoilers. But that's what's going to happen. So Connor, you hadn't seen this either.
No, I'd had it recommended many a time, but I never got around to it.
Really, I'd never really heard anyone talk to me about it. This is one that was on my to watch list, mainly because of my Bible, which is 1001 movies to see before you die. And it was one that was in there, and it's one that pops up in a lot of best of lists. So I've kind of become aware of it because of like top 100s and things like that, and it kept popping up in a lot of them, and that's why it was kind of on my radar.
No, I've had a few friends say to me, "Hey, you should watch this."
So what is Women in the Dunes, or sometimes known as Women of the Dunes? It is a existential. Joe, I almost want to call it a horror movie.
It almost is, isn't it?
It almost is. It doesn't quite get. There's definitely some scenes that feel scary as shit, but it's I mean, arguably it's like a drama, mild thriller, and then occasionally just outright horror film. But it's the kind of film where the horror comes from the fact that it's really just how scary life is. And then it really makes it obvious how scary life is, and it's like, oh my god, this is terrifying because this is the life we're all living.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're all screwed.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard movie to describe. Like, I didn't know what to expect really going in, and it opens with these images, and you got all these like clicking sounds that come through, and I'm like,
Yeah,
what am I watching here?
There's some symbolism to open with, and it sort of goes back to that every so often in the film. There'll be like these symbolic shots of like close-ups, because the opening image you're talking about, you're like, what the hell is this? And it turns out to just be like a grain of sand. It's like a close-up on a grain of sand, and then it comes out. But it's like, is this some sort of weird alien heart that's like pulsating, and there's like all this red around it? And you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, and I was like, what movie am I watching here? What is this?
Yeah, it's strange, but
It's very surreal at first.
It puts you in this weird tone, this weird frame of mind before it gets going. And we're introduced to this character named Junpei, who he's a teacher, and he's an interest in bugs, and he is out there looking for this specific type of beetle or whatever that's in the sand, and he ends up daydreaming and kind of missing his last bus home. So he's still out there on the dunes, and some local villagers, basically, and very excitedly, might I add, say, "Oh, hey, you could probably stay somewhere close by. There's a widow nearby who could probably give you a room for the night." And he's like, "Okay, thank you very much." And they lead him to this pit in the dunes, this big chasm almost. And there's a house at the bottom of this pit. And they tell him that he has to climb down the ladder to get to the house. And he gets down there, and the woman welcomes him, makes him dinner. They make some small talk. She says some really weird things he doesn't quite understand, and just kind of laughs them off. Of course, as soon as she referred to like something they're going to have to do in a few days when he thinks he's leaving the next day, I immediately got very tense.
Yeah,
very tense.
It just snaps in an instant. The mood, doesn't it? Of uh-oh.
Yeah, because especially since it's like there's this one like rope ladder hanging down into this pit. I'm like, all it would take to trap him here is someone to pull that up, and that's it. He's here. He's stuck, and that's what the movie is. He's stuck in this pit with this woman, who he now essentially has to kind of be a fill-in husband to her, and she essentially lives down there and just shovels sand into these boxes that they'll hoist up later in the night, and I actually had no idea what the sand was for, what the purpose of this was until later when they started talking about the use of the sand and who it was been sold to. I was unclear as to what the point was, but they do mention that eventually that it gets sold off to.
It does have a secondary point of just not overflowing the house.
Of course, yeah. Well, yeah, I understood that part, that if she doesn't do this every day, eventually the sand will just fall in and fill in the pit, and therefore she'll suffocate and the house will be gone.
Be drowned in sand.
Yes. But I didn't understand why the villagers who had kidnapped him and put him down here wanted the sand and wanted them to keep doing this. That was the part I needed later on to
it's
be.
something that the movie just kind of comes back to every so often, that gives you another reason and kind of reminds you why it's important.
And the film's kind of about just the breaking of him as a character and him wanting to escape, trying his best, trying to convince her to help escape, failing miserably, and being broken down bit by bit as a character. And it's a very allegorical film. Everything's kind of an analogy for something else, and that's kind of the gist of it. So I guess I'll answer the question. Obviously, we're not spoiling the ending yet. We'll get to that in spoilers, but I'll ask Connor the question I always ask. Connor, did you enjoy Women in the Dunes?
Couldn't decide which title to go with for a second, could you?
Shut up.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic.
Yes, I liked it quite a bit. Yeah, it's good. It's got so much atmosphere. Like for a movie that's set pretty much in a pit in one little house, I think what really impressed me was how I could almost feel sand on my body as I was watching it at various points. There's so many close-ups of them scraping sand off of their feet, their legs, their back.
Yeah, there's a scene of them like washing sand off, and then instantly it's just everywhere again.
Yeah, there's sand everywhere.
Like,
all I could think was Anakin Skywalker is just this is a nightmare for him. He's
I'm not gonna lie, it did cross my mind at one point during the movie. I've gone, oh, inspiration.
This is just nightmare fuel for him. That's all that is. But yeah, I was actually thinking just the production, like the cast and the crew must have hated sand by the time they were done filming this.
Yeah.
They must have hated it.
Honestly, I think one of my bigger criticisms of the movie is the very obvious dubbing, because clearly recording in these conditions was awful.
Oh yeah, because dunes are quite noisy at times if you aware of that.
And but I could just even in a foreign language, I can just hear the dub, and I was like, oh, that's uncomfortable.
That's fair. I don't notice it as much when it's in a foreign language. Like there's times where I'll notice the lip sync's not completely perfect, but it doesn't stick out to me. When it's in English, my eyes just zone in on it right away. Like it's instantly off.
Yeah.
It's like something's not quite right. In a foreign language, I'll only notice it here or there.
I think it's even the sound. It was too clean. Like it was just because there's still this hissing background noise pretty much all the time. Because like I said, dunes are noisy.
Yeah.
But the voice, obviously you want them to be clean so you can understand them, but it was to a fault.
But yeah, so this film has a lot of texture. This is a really pretentious thing to say, but it's a lot of texture. I could always feel sand everywhere.
Yeah, there are so many shots where it just cuts to you just watch sand rolling down like in the wind.
Oh yeah,
and it's fantastic every time.
Oh yeah, it looks great. It looks fantastic. Obviously, it's black and white, this film, which it's not that obvious because there's even Japanese films. There's plenty. We just did Samurai 2 last week, which is 8 years older than this, and it's it's in color, so it's not like it's that obvious. But this is black and white, and it's interesting how because the funny thing is I feel like if this was in color, it would oddly enough be almost like one color anyway. Because it would just all be sand.
It would all be that orangey sand color.
Yeah, which maybe that's why it's in black and white, because it's to save us from just too much orange.
Maybe, yeah, could be.
Saves us from that. I don't know, but
I think the black and white adds to it. It adds to the bleakness.
Yeah, no, I think that's the true answer. Is it does add to the bleakness, because it's a very bleak film. It's very depressing, especially the further you go. And because obviously there's a point in this film, and again, not to talk about the ending and where it goes, but there's a point in this film where I just made my mind up and said, I don't know what's going to happen at the end, but it's not going to be happy.
Yeah. After a while, you just decide that. I doubt it's the same point for everyone, but I think everyone will get that point somewhere in the movie. They'll just go, Nah, this is screwed. Yeah,
this is not ending good for him. I don't know if he's going to die. I don't know if he's going to what. But no matter what, this is not going to be a happy ending. Like I honestly was thinking at one point, he'll get out at the end. He'll go back to like civilization, and he'll hate it. And he'll be miserable. And he'll just be he'll just jump off a building right there. Like I was because it gets so nihilistic at a point that I'm just kind of like, oh my god. But it's a lot of it is an allegory, and the simple one, of course, is the idea that every day they're shoveling sand, just so they don't die, and then the sand just keeps coming back down. It's kind of the the never-ending struggle that just feels pointless, right? And it's just kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, so this just represents life. This is just going through life. This is all the pressures of life, the system, everything, and that's what it represents. The grind of life, and you just work so you can have money, but then you have to spend more money, so you need more money, so you can just keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah, you get your money, but then oh wait, you got rent or mortgage, food, and then oh wait, I've got no money again, so I need to work all month.
Yes, here it's just sand instead.
I mean, it's much simpler. There's no arguing with that.
Yeah, but you know what I think is interesting though is the movie opens before he encounters this. He actually there's a little bit of an inner monologue from him, where he's talking about how he hates all the identification systems that we have. Like you need ID, driver's license, passports, voters roll. He lists like even more than I can probably name, to be honest. But he lists like 30 different like pieces of documentation or systems and databases that everyone's on to prove they exist in some way. So he's clearly already someone who feels kind of like separate from the grind of life, but then it's almost like he's literally put into the embodiment of what he feels real life is like in this pit. So there's a dark irony to that, and then there's an irony, of course, that he then hopes that once he realizes he can't just like escape, right? Because obviously the first thing he does is try and climb, and it's futile.
It's sand. Have you ever tried climbing sand?
I've not tried climbing sand because it seems like a stupid idea.
Yeah, it just collapses in on you. It's horrible.
I also don't think I've ever been in a place where the sand's like a wall that I could even try and climb.
Okay, no, I've been into.
Yeah. Oh no, obviously I've been in beaches and stuff, but they don't tend to,
No, you have to dig a reasonable amount for it to be a solid wall.
Yes. I've never dug in that deep.
Yeah.
I've dug just about enough to bury a body in, and no more. I'm
Pretty shallow, right? Not the full 6 feet.
Not the full 6 feet. Come on, it's a fun day at the beach. I'm not digging 6 feet. Are you kidding me? Also, no context for that. I'll just let that mystery, linger.
I think everyone expects you to have done that at some point.
So no, it's very. So the sand represents everything. There's just sand everywhere. It's sick of sand. There's a close up at one point of him just like scrubbing sand off of his feet, and I'm just like, oh god, this is just hell. Hell, this is nightmare fuel for me at this point. Come on, there's sand everywhere.
Sand is awful. Do you know the worst part about sand is you all right? So you go to the beach, you come home, you get all cleaned, you get rid of everything, and then 3 weeks later, why is there still sand in my shoe? It just keeps appearing. It's awful.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously the first thing they do is he's having dinner, and she puts up a little umbrella, and he's like, "What's that for?" She's like, "Oh, it's for the sand, because it'll keep coming
stop it
through."
going in the food. Yeah.
It'll keep coming, and because he wakes up the next morning, she's sleeping naked. Because the idea is that they sleep mostly during the day because it's easier to do all the work at night because it's cooler, and she's sleeping naked, completely naked, and he tries to like leave. He's like, "Oh, this is awkward. I'm just going to leave." And this is when he realizes the ladder's not there, and he tries to wake her up. But we find out the reason why she's naked is because the sand makes you dry, so you should sleep naked because otherwise you get a rash from your clothes. Your clothes will give you a rash because of that. And I'm like, okay, all right, it's practical.
Sounds very uncomfortable.
It does sound very uncomfortable, very practical. So obviously over the course of the film, he's broken down. And it is a depressing ride of just watching someone systematically broken down. Because ultimately, what the film's about is, if we're saying the sand represents, life and society and all the pressures that you're under, is that ultimately people conform to it and become slaves.
Eventually, you crack.
Yeah, you become part of the system, and it's because one of the big things in the movie is that she is wanting to save up so they'll give her a radio. Even though she doesn't even see herself as a prisoner, but that's essentially what she is. But she wants a radio, and it's kind of this idea that she's willing to work within the system they've set up to get this prize, this reward. It's kind of like in society, we will get the nice job, the best job we can get, and we'll keep working so we can buy that boat or whatever it is, like, because we want a boat. But we're still kind of adhered to the system that's created around us. Now, obviously, this is all very ideological, and it's not to say that the film's like adamantly against capitalism and the system and everything. It's more just about how a human being can feel trapped inside the system.
No, I agree, and as much as you say, oh, it's anti-capitalism. That's there, absolutely, but it depends.
It's not the
What
sole
you want to
point.
choose. Yeah, you can kind of choose what the sand specifically represents, right? Because it seems almost too easy to say the sand represents everything, but it
It
does
does. It
because
actually does.
you want it to represent society, sure. You want it to represent just a family, that you okay, no, you got to do all this
Yeah,
to feed your family.
because the other thing as well is the idea that he is forced into a role of a husband when that's not who he is.
Yeah,
Because they even call him a husband. When the guys come to pick stuff up top, they refer to him as the husband. Well, he's not married, but all of a sudden he's in this domestic life with this woman, and she's like cooking food for him and stuff. And it's all of a sudden they're making house, and he's obviously resisting it, but. It's like no,
mm.
this is so you can almost argue the film is in part, if you want to look at it from the perspective of the pressure on a man to want to have that normal married life. When no, he doesn't want to be settled down. He wants to be free and he wants to have a different type of life. And
Yeah.
this is the pressure of that, and he's literally forced into it. Which again, it goes into the idea of just the system, society, the expectations of everyone.
But it's all different. Pick your system, right?
Yeah.
It works for any country, any ideology.
Yeah, I mean we were picking capitalism because that's the system we were in, so it makes sense. Because I was actually thinking early on in the film that there might be some to do with the post Second World War, the post Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? I was wondering if it was when she said that her husband and daughter had died and they were still down here somewhere and she didn't want to leave and she felt trapped. I was wondering if like he represents like Japan who wants to move on from all this, but she represents part of Japan who's kind of stuck in the past because of what happened and can't get over it. And the film kind of I think it kind of drifted more towards what we've already been talking about rather than that. But I was still thinking about that as we were going on.
I think those elements are there with the villagers keeping him trapped down there.
Yeah,
is kind of the rest of the world, their perception of Japan at that time period of Japan's trying to move on, trying to change, but the rest of the world's like no, we know what you are.
Yeah, I was definitely getting vibes of that early on. It was when she mentioned her family specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so performances are very good. I mean, you've got two actors essentially doing the whole thing. I mean, obviously the guys who come and see them once in a while are up there, but they're not big parts. It's a two-person show.
Basically, the two of them, and they've got to carry the entire movie.
Yeah, but of course, in them is the cinematography because the camera work does a lot of interesting things. There's a lot of extreme close-ups. There's a lot of very sort of visceral like details and things.
Yeah, it's got some really interesting cuts as well as to when it chooses to cut.
Because this is based on a book, but it wouldn't have shocked me if you told me that this was based on a play. Because I can almost see this being like one camera set up with just the wide shot in the house.
Yeah, you could do this as a stage play quite comfortably.
Yeah, you'd have the house set, and then you'd have like a little bit outside the house set, which is like the wall where the rope would be, and that'd be it. That'd be the whole stage.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you could pretty much do it that way. Barring like one or two scenes that you just sort of have them explain maybe when after the fact.
Well, that's where you just do a set change, right?
Yeah. Well, there's one scene in particular I'm thinking of that I don't think you could do that for.
I don't know.
Oh, about the pets. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is it's so minimal in the overall scheme of the movie that I wouldn't say it was worth having a second set for it.
Well, no, but I mean, stage set changes are simply just pull it away, put something else in quickly, and then back again.
Yeah. So. No, it's very visceral. Every so often it'll go back to this score. It does feel like a horror movie. Actually, there's like these harsh strings and like these little slides in the strings.
Yeah. It's very. It's got these percussive elements as well that are so completely off time with anything.
Honestly, the thing that's making me think of first is actually Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay, no, I can hear it.
That's what it makes me think of. Which I was not. Like, see, when the movie started and I was getting that score, I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" I thought this was like a weird
drama,
erotic drama about a man, a woman, and the dunes. And there is some eroticism in there, and that's part of the overall plot. But it's definitely not the core focus that.
Absolutely.
I was expecting it might be. Then again, I didn't really know what it was. But I mean, literally all I know was, teacher gets trapped by a local. I didn't even read this one because this mentions local villagers. I never knew about local villagers. I just mentioned woman traps man in dunes. that was like all I knew about the plot going in.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I knew too. And people going, you should watch it.
And honestly, it's not really her that traps him. I mean, she's complicit, but she's not really the one who's doing any trapping.
Yeah, no, she's equally trapped. She doesn't really think about it as that, but she
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, she is. And I guess that's, again, it's the idea of the married life where he's like having an existential crisis and midlife crisis about, this is all life is now, is being married and stuff. And she's
Yeah.
like, no, I'm happy. I like this system. And,
No, I think one of the best moments and conversations is when he's like, I just want to go up and walk around.
mm,
And she's like, why? What's the point? You just get tired. And he's like, but it's something different, right? It's just it's that sense of free. Even if you're not really free, it's just walking around and coming back.
yeah.
It's that illusion that makes you feel better. We're going to
And
through
I'm
life. It's
pretty,
that
correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the irony of this is that they're having this conversation as they're digging the sand, and he's really tired. And she's like, oh, you get used to this, and you're not tired anymore. Trust me, you'll be fine.
yeah
And then they go on
yeah
to have this conversation. So, oh, no, that sounds really tiring walking around aimlessly. But as she's like shoveling sand just repeatedly into a bucket.
yeah exactly. But
So,
it's the idea there of just doing something different. That it's that illusion of being out of the system, right? But you're not really accomplishing anything with it. It just makes you feel a bit better.
yeah. Yeah. So, no, it's. I was not expecting how tense this was going to be. Because I think once he gets down there, and obviously the tension goes up and down depending on where we are,
Mm.
but once he gets down there, it basically never lets up completely. Even when things kind of feel like they're settling down a little bit, there's always this underlying kind
There's
of,
always a baseline of just, oh, what if the sand collapses? What if he tries to make a break for it again?
yeah. Or even if it's not that, even if it's a tension of what if he's just giving up? Because there's a tension to that,
Yeah,
I think. There's a
there
tension
is.
to
Yeah,
he's just giving up, we've kind of lost.
I think that comes in, in the last third or so of the movie. I think
Yeah.
early on you've still got all that hope that no, he's fine. He's gonna get through it.
Yeah, so yeah, I think I'll give the spoiler warning just so we can talk about the whole thing more openly at this point. So full spoilers from this point on for Women in the Dunes, and because obviously, like I say, the whole thing's about him kind of conforming and being forced to just sort of go along with their system, and I think the sexual part of the film is kind of where it almost bullet points each section, or
Mm.
it caps each section because the first time they have sex, it's kind of an unplanned sort of like just moment of passion and rage,
Yeah,
where she tries to stop him from trying to escape, and he's like fighting her off, and then they end up like fighting back, and it ends in a kind of sexual position, and then they kind of back off from each other, and then it becomes a sex scene. And it's like, okay, so he's kind of desperate, and he's almost just doing a sort of desperate passion more than
yeah,
anything else. He feels something for her. And then the second time, it's more, arguably a bit more of a sort of traditional scene where she's bathing him, and it starts off just very clinical, but then it gets a bit more sexual as it's going. And it's like, okay, now he's just kind of accepting that he's in this life now. He's just kind of accepting that he's part of the
yeah.
system.
It's like you said, it's a very much a normal sex scene,
Yeah,
and that's the point. It feels every day.
yeah. And then the third one, which is where it goes like, imagine if you're going like down to a line, and then that's the line. Then there's one that's beyond the line. Because later on in the film, after he's kind of like, again, he's at a point now where he's accepted where he is, and he's been here for a few months, and he shouts up, "Please, I just want to like see the ocean, and maybe let me out for like an hour a day to go walk
Yeah,
around.
you walk around for half an hour a day. That's it.
You can guard me, whatever. I just want to see the ocean." And at this point, I'm like, oh god, he's mentally he's screwed now, because now he's asking for a reward. He wants to work for a reward. He's now part of this system, and they come back later, like the next night or whatever, and it's like, okay, and it's like the entire village of people. Because we've only ever seen like two or three of them at this
Yeah,
point.
I think it starts with just one guy talking
Yeah,
to him here at this scene. It's like, oh hey, I hear you want to see the ocean.
yeah. And then like the entire village, and a lot of them are wearing creepy masks. There's like there's a drummer,
Yeah,
drumming on the drums, and they basically say, well, okay, there's a condition. We'll let you go to the ocean every day if you and your missus do what in front of everyone. He's like, what? He doesn't understand it first. He's like, what? Do what? He's like, you heard me. You know what? To the old lady. And he goes and speaks to her and says, and it's kind of awkward. Everyone's kind of drumming and waiting up top. He's like, hey, this is what they want us to do. And she's like, don't be silly. We're not perverts. And just keep shoveling. And this gets very awkward and tense very quickly, because it's like, because earlier on in the film he was speaking to her about how everyone in the system's kind of selfish and they just kind of look out for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And there's also that irony that he was kind of almost relying on the fact that he is part of all these systems, that they would come looking for him because he's missing. Oh, I won't show up to work, so they'll come look for me. I won't do this, so they'll come looking for me.
Yeah, he talks about how, I left all this stuff in my hotel room. You know, the bank checkbook was open and
so again,
just on the desk.
It's the idea that he
screams of someone gone missing.
He was complaining at the start about all these systems in place to like sort of confirm who you are, but now he's relying on them in the hope that someone will use that to come and rescue him because now he's absent. Therefore, people should care that he's gone, but seemingly no one does. And so he gave this lecture earlier on about the world being selfish and everyone's out for themselves. And then in this scene, he tries to rape her in front, because she says no, and he tries to force it in front of everyone. And she fights him off, and he kind of realizes what he's doing, and he backs down.
He diffuses it a bit by just saying, just pretend. Like, we don't have to actually do it. Just pretend so they think we're doing it, and I can still get my reward. Try to cheat the system here.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, and this is like ultimately the pit of the pit, where he is not only like in the system, not only does he want to work by their rules for the reward, he is willing to do something as extreme as this, even pretending to do it, right? But when she says no to pretending, that's when he tries to force her. He's absolute bottom. So not only is he being selfish and he's being like malicious to those around him, to someone, because the woman is actually really innocent and kind of placid throughout the entire film. She's complicit in what's going on, but she's complicit by the way of someone who's brainwashed almost.
Yeah, because they talk about how for her it's all the young men leave because there's not much here, and but they can go to the city and there's restaurants and cinemas, so they'd rather do that. So we need to get men from somewhere. So they just see it as like she's like aware that they're kidnapped, and it's like not great, but it's like, well, what we're gonna do.
Again, it kind of feels like, again, in a system, you have the idea that people kind of like hand wave something that should morally cause problems, like, because I think we see that in society every day. People like, oh, this is inconvenient for me to like accept or deal with, so I'll just hand wave it. It's fine. It's not that bad, because she's told that the sand that they're selling is actually dangerous for production. That it's cheaper and they're doing it under the table, but it's actually dangerous. Buildings and dams could fall down because they're using this and not like proper materials. And she's like, it's fine. Like, she waves it.
It's very reminiscent to go to a recent event like a year and a half ago, the Grenfell Towers in London, where if you're not familiar, it was huge fire in this building, and it turns out that there was all this material that was placed around to make the building look a bit nicer for the richer residents nearby. It was extremely flammable, and people just hand waved it and didn't care. And then a lot of people died. Yeah,
it basically turned out this material essentially turned the building into a giant candle, and it was horrific. And she kind of hand waves it, and it's that idea of like you see something horrible on the news, and this is not the news. He's just telling her this, but then just at home she's like netting away. She's like, nah, it's fine, doesn't matter. I only care about me getting my radio, so I'm going to keep working on my little things. And that's the scene. But you never like hate her. You never begrudge her for what's happening here.
I think there's a fantastic moment where she says, "Oh, I've nearly got enough where I've earned this much money."
Yeah.
And then they burst out laughing at the absurdity of needing money in this system, because what's that going to do them?
Yeah. Not even just that. He bursts out laughing because he's looking at a book, and it's like a farmer. And it's like saying, oh, comply and work hard and you'll get rewards. And he's kind of like, he's laughing at the absurdity that he's realizing they're just, because there's a whole other thing where he's been collecting bugs and taping them to like his little display. And there's an irony, of course, is that he's essentially, that's what's happened to him. These villagers have put him into into a bottle, and they've got him on display. But yeah, so that scene where he tries to force it to have sex in front of everyone, and he does back down eventually because he kind of realizes what he's doing, and the idea that at his core he's not an awful person, and he's realizing what they've almost made him do. But this is the first, because up until this point you're on his side, like he's sympathetic the entire film, you're kind of rooting for him to get out. But this is the point where I think to the audience, he's crossed the line, and he has become so desperate and so much a part of this that you can't actually, this is where, for the rest of the film, you're kind of in a weird place with him now.
Yeah, it's one of those weird moments where you understand why he's he did it because he is. You understand that it's the system that broke him, right? So you're still sympathetic to a degree that, like, yeah, he made the choice to do that, but we've seen all the circumstance that led to it and caused him to make that choice.
You can't really sympathize with him in the same way, because for all of his talk, he's kind of become a slave to this system now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think for the rest of the film, he's kind of in this weird murky place where you're not sure how to feel about him anymore. And it's almost at a point where it stops being personal and it becomes like, instead of watching a film where you're rooting for a protagonist, it becomes like almost a study. Like it becomes, you almost like go behind another pane of glass, and it's like, okay, now I'm watching subjects in an experiment, and I'm analysing how they cope in the experiment.
Yeah.
But it oddly kind of works because at this point it's not, because I think we're analysing the film as a part of, like, this is representing society, but there comes a point when you're looking at like things on such a grand scale where you have to get a little bit inhumane to actually kind of analyse the data properly, I think.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
And I feel like there's a point in this movie, and I think that's the point, where you can't really almost take it on just a human level anymore because it's just too painful. It's just too hurtful that this is all life boils down to. There's a scene where he says to her, "How can you do this every day? You know, you're shoveling sand to live, but or are you living to shovel sand? At what point, is it even worth the effort?" And that's kind of what the point of the film is, and and that's why it's a really depressing watch, because everything it's kind of examining is kind of like, are we all just wasting our time in life? Are all we doing is just...
I'm not gonna lie, I'm very glad I watched this on a day off, because if I'd watched this after a shift at work, I think I'd feel even worse.
Yeah, no, I can see that, because he talks about how he wants to get into an entomology book. He wants to get his name in there because he discovered this new beetle, this new bug.
Yeah.
And he wants to be famous because that's tangible. That's him. He's made a difference. He's stood out from the crowd. And the movie is...
I think it's funny that you can go as far back as the 60s here in Japan and still say, look, everyone wants to be famous.
Yeah.
Which obviously, over the past decade or so, that's been a thing of a judgment of the millennial generation, right? It's like, oh, you just want to be famous, whereas, well, clearly not when you have films back then examining the exact same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a really tough scene to watch. It gets really awkward, this scene where they're all trying to force them to have sex in front of them, and then they're left in this weird place. But I think there's, like, again, great analysis to have with the fallout of this, where seemingly, like, days later, they're back to just playing house again, as if nothing happened. It's weird.
No, it's a coping thing, right? It's like, well, we're still stuck down here. We can't, if that's the defining moment, then everything that every moment from here on out is going to be even worse. So they kind of just forget about it just to cope and make it slightly more bearable.
Yeah. And he starts cracking little jokes. He starts being almost like a husband at this point. He starts to act more like in that role after that point. Because I think that scene where he does almost rape her, I think that scene to him is a wake-up moment where it's basically either he is this deranged or he makes the best of it.
Yeah.
And he makes the choice to make the best of it from then on out. And obviously it's the better choice of the two, absolutely, but it is a depressing choice. It's like,
yeah, I think arguably that's the moment he was broken.
Yeah.
When he chose to, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to just make the best of this.
Yeah, he was teetering on it for a long time at that point, but yeah, that's the moment where he's truly broken.
The moment.
And again, that's kind of the thing. It's like, oh, you're young in the world and you want to make the best of it and you'll change the world and do all these things, but there's a point where you have to care about credit ratings and mortgages and you just have to, like, succumb to the system, and it's that depressing, really. Like, that's kind of what the movie's about in a lot of ways.
This is, hey, you're about to have a midlife crisis.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose you could be positive and say, nah, the movie's pointing out it could be worse. You could be in a sand pit.
Yeah, but on the other hand, they're kind of going, well, this is just as bad. It's not really any better or worse. It's just equally awful.
No, there's no internet down in this pit.
Oh, there would be now. You would definitely get in there down there
Oh,
now.
come on. Radios and TVs were a thing then. They didn't have either of those. She had to work really hard to get that radio.
Yeah, but she got one.
Aye, just before she left.
That's irrelevant.
Because obviously she ends up pregnant at the end. At the end of the film, she starts being in pain, and they called in a doctor, and they have like several people in. They have to take her up, and of course at this point he's made a little discovery. One of his efforts to try and escape, and this was like a long shot. He admitted this was a long shot, but he wanted to try and trap a raven that he could attach a message to that would hopefully get somewhere that would send for help, and he accidentally discovers that he can actually bring up water in the ground,
Yeah,
and one of
made a little well.
and one of the ways that they have been controlling him and made it sort of broke him enough to like not try and escape early on, and force them to do the work was by like not giving them rations, so they got dehydrated and they got kind of sick.
They get what 3 packets of tobacco and a bottle of vodka once a week.
Yeah,
and then X amount of water. It's just like, well, make it last.
And presumably food, because they had rice and stuff as well.
Yeah, but they made they made points of really establishing those ones in particular.
But he realizes he can actually like get his own water. And it's like, okay, so this is power. This is some sort of success. And you think, is this how he somehow gets out of here? Is this? And so he's learning this, and he's still a bit of something of a scientist, and he's working this out. But then she gets sick. It turns out she's pregnant, and they take her up, and she doesn't want to leave. She's actually scared to leave her home. You know, this is kind of I don't know what it's called, but it's like prisoners who don't want to leave prison because they become so reliant on the safety of the walls and the cut off community that they're in. But he's left there, and the ladder's still there. They've forgotten to take it back up because they were so concerned about getting her to like a hospital or whatever.
Yeah, I think it looked like she was maybe miscarrying.
Yeah. And he climbs up, and he sort of hesitates, and he goes up, and he actually gets up, and he goes out. And obviously, we've actually glossed over a scene in the middle where he does escape.
We have.
He makes a grappling hook essentially out of a pair of scissors and some fabric and
because there's a great scene early on where he's like, "Oh, have you got any scissors? Just want to trim the mustache."
Yeah.
And it really lingers on her rummaging around trying to find them, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
He wants to know what they are. That's all he wanted. That's all he wanted in this scene. And he makes this, and I actually appreciate when he goes on the roof to try and like throw the rope up. I appreciate it took like 8 tries before it worked, because I always roll my eyes a little bit in movies where they have like a grappling hook and they throw it up and it always catches onto something perfectly the first time.
Well, no. I think the rule is always 3 times usually. So often I see they fail once, twice they go in the undershoot instead of overshoot. They go the opposite direction. 3rd time's the charm. And I get that, you go in 3s, you don't want to make it too repetitive, but I really appreciate here. It's like, no, this took way longer.
Yeah, this was like, it kept falling. Every time he pulled it, it just fell down. It was like, okay.
I imagine this was just, they just went, just keep going until you get it. Just keep trying.
Maybe. Well, that's assuming they're actually in a pit. I was assuming this was something of a set.
Yeah, but I mean,
where the house
to throw this.
Yeah. But hey, so he gets out and he actually runs. This is actually one of the scariest scenes in the movie. Is him running about at night, and then the villagers start chasing after him with flashlights in the dark, and he eventually gets in quicksand and he has to scream for help, and he relies on them saving him so he doesn't die. And of course they put him right back in the hole.
But you see him learning because they've all got boards on their feet to spread out the surface area, so that they can walk, and he's just sinking.
Yep. And at the end, so he goes up and he looks out at the water and he doesn't look satisfied. It's like it's not quite right. And he actually goes back to his little pit where he's made his little well, and he brings up his bucket, and he just comments to himself that no, escaping can wait for another day. I want to show someone this. She's gone. Maybe I'll show the villagers. They'll respect this. And I'm like, nah, well, because this is taking power away from them if you can get your own water. So this is almost self-sabotage at this point.
What this is finally integration with the community.
Yeah, it's basically, it's that again, going back to this idea of just putting this into the society and what it represents. It's the person who hates their job and they keep saying, I'm going to leave this job for something better, and they just never do. They keep saying, oh no, I'll look for a job next month. I'll do it next month. Do it next month.
And then they go, do you want to come and do overtime? And you go, yeah, right then.
Alright, so you last weekend then, basically.
That's me every day for the last month.
Not really, but I mean, I like money, I suppose. So that's that's the sand, and it keeps coming back down, and there it is. But so it ends with him choosing to stay, but he's not self-aware though. He's not self. I mean, he makes the choice to stay, but he's not self-aware that he's become this. He says to himself, "No, I'll escape in a couple of days' time."
Yeah, exactly. And you could make the argument that okay, I mean the rope ladder's there now. He could go back. He could leave the next day, but it's not that, is it?
No, yeah, but will it even stay there though?
That's the thing. It's. I mean, you could look at it as oh, that's that promotion, right? That's that other job. The idea of it's there until it's gone, and that's when the fear sets in, right? That's when you go, oh shit, I missed my chance.
Yeah.
So he to go back to what you were saying a minute ago of just the person who says they're gonna leave the job and then never does, because they're like, well, it's fine, I can always do it, right? Until it's too late and they realize, oh wait, shit, I'm stuck here.
Yeah.
And I think he doesn't quite get to that moment in this movie.
No, because I think the point of the movie is getting to that point where he is fully 100%, integrated into this society, this world, this system.
Yeah.
And he is accepted it. I don't even know if accepted it's the right word. He's conformed to it. I think conformed is a better word.
He's broken by it.
Yeah.
Accepted would imply that he is okay with it, but at the end he's still like, I'll escape. It's fine.
Yeah, he still has to have that dangling hope in another.
Right, he's still aware that he's in a shit situation and should be trying to escape.
Yeah, because that's the whole movie. The whole movie is about taking him and getting him to this point at the end. And the entire film is designed to, he wants to escape. They'll take his water away. He won't do the work. They will keep taking the rations. Okay, eventually he gives in and he'll do it. But he's still biding his time until someone comes and rescues him. Oh, that doesn't work. Oh, he makes a grapple hook with scissors and tries to use that. He gets out. It fails. He's put right back in his place. And, and it's just everything just going down to the point where he's willing...
crushing movie.
It is. It's soul crushing, and to the point where they're wanting him to humiliate himself with her in front of everyone for their entertainment. And again, the idea that they're on display, they're like his bugs, because that's the other point where he's fully integrated. Is after this he burns all his stuff, because the woman says she's scared of waking up and he's gone, and to comfort her almost, he just grabs all his belongings and just burns them, and he's like, no,
where am I gonna go now?
Yeah. So yeah, it's yeah, it's soul destroying as a movie, but it's really effective in doing that. You feel tense the entire time. The movie's 2.5 hours long, and I wouldn't cut anything. I think the pacing and the way it slowly goes through all the realizations is kind of important. I
think to really buy the being crushed and defeated by the system, it has to be long.
Yeah,
because it's not a quick process. You can't rush that. Otherwise, you just don't believe it, right? If you miss any of that, you just go, I don't really buy that he was broken by that. You have to go through everything like this.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I think those are the obvious interpretations of it. There's probably more. There's probably people who've written an entire thesis on this. I know
it could quite easily, yeah.
The book that it's based on, I'm sure, gets studied as well.
Absolutely.
In literature classes, I have no doubt. Interestingly, it was adapted by the writer of the book, Kobo Abe, who wrote the book, also wrote a screenplay. Presumably
very faithful then.
Yeah. So and Hiroshi Teshigahara is the director.
Yeah.
Butcher his name.
I think we haven't mentioned the direction. We talked about all the individual elements of that that fall under the cinematography, the acting, but the direction is impeccable.
Oh yeah, it is so confident. Everything works towards a single feeling that happens as soon as he gets in that pit. Your stomach's churning and it never stops. It gets a little bit better at times, it gets worse at other times, and it reaches culmination. And at the end, you're just depressed because he's not even trying to fight anymore. Yeah.
So bleak.
It's honestly, it almost feels like a counterpoint to Cool Hand Luke, which is a movie about Paul Newman going to prison, and like the guards want to break him, and he just won't break. Like he's that determined that he will never give up his spirit because that's who he is.
Yeah.
And and that's not to say that it necessarily has a much happier ending than this, but it's definitely more hopeful in terms of the spirit and the idea that it inspires the other prisoners not to lose who they are.
Yeah, this has no uplifting message at the end.
No, there's nothing uplifting
This
about
is just,
this.
yeah, it's all shit. You're all stuck in the system. You're all going to work in it until you die.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
dear.
it's Monday, right? I mean, got a whole week ahead of me yet.
At the time of recording, everyone else won't be getting this till Friday.
Well, I know. I just thought it was relevant here. See, that's you say that on a Friday for most people. It's like, well, you got the weekend. You got to look forward to. But
again, the man-made construct of the weekend to make you feel better about working. Actually, I saw a great article this week. Some company somewhere was testing 4-day work weeks. But I mean, obviously, there's places
longer days. Yeah.
Obviously, there's other places that. Well, no, that was the thing. It wasn't longer days.
Oh, they weren't doing the longer days.
Because obviously, there's places that have your different shift, obviously. But if you think of the traditional office job of 9 till 5 or whatever in a week,
yeah,
all they did was cut a day. They cut Friday. It was just Thursday 9 till 5, and they found that people were more productive because it turns out people will do the exact same amount of work in 4 days and 5 days. They just waste less time.
I completely believe that. You know, I know. I will, like procrastinate the shit out of something that, right? Like when you're at, college or university, you've got a project to be done. You got an, 10,000 word essay. I know people who would have the same essay and would be working on it for 3 months, and I'd go, I'll give it a night. Still got done. Still got a reasonable grade.
Yes,
and it's like.
Eventually that did backfire on me once when I ended up with like 3 essays and over 2 days to do, and that was a soul crushing 48 hours of work. Yeah.
But I always planned the exact minimum amount of time I needed.
Yes, no, I completely believe it. I completely believe that people procrastinate and waste time because they know the time's there to waste.
Because they can.
Now, obviously, there's a point where you can make it too short, and it would actually be a struggle to get everything done. But clearly, the 5 work day of an office job is actually just too much, and 4's plenty. So, it made people have a better mood because they had 3 days off in the week, and it was really successful. So hopefully more people adopt that because it actually sounds like it's a better idea. So no, just I don't know. I thought it was interesting. That it's actually just more productive, even though there's no more time to actually work. And they paid them the same amount. This is the thing. They didn't cut the pay. There was no negative side to it. It was just, we'll pay the same amount for 4 days' work. You're doing all the same amount of work. You're just doing it in less time.
Yeah.
And it got
as long
done.
as you're salaried, it's all good, right?
Yeah. So, clearly there's improvements to make in the system, in lots of places. Not even just in working conditions. I think you have to look at healthcare. You have to look at everything else everyone worries about all the time. But not to get. Let's just leave that there. That's the whole spiraling conversation to go on.
Yeah, and that's before we even get into robotics taking jobs in the near future.
Yes. Well, my advice to everyone younger than me, I guess, not that I'm even that old, but if you're in the high school right now, I would say specialize in robotic maintenance. I feel like that's what you want for the future because that'll be what the jobs are.
I mean, some people scoff at it. It's like, you can see it already. Look at self-service machines in the shops.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Takes one person to staff instead of 10.
I mean, it already kind of happened with factories, right? Like, how many factories once upon a time would have been people and...
Yeah, but people always go, well, it won't be my job. People need the interaction with things like that, and shops have proved, no, not really.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I prefer not having the interaction. I love being able to order food online because I don't have to talk to someone on the phone. It's amazing.
No, it's true. I always feel like slightly guilty when I use the self-service machines because I'm like, I know I've just stolen someone's job by using this, consistently, but I don't really want to talk to someone at the till and make that, that fake small talk that you have to make. It's like, oh yeah, how's your day? It's like, I don't care. I just want to buy my stuff and get out.
And they say us millennials are becoming less sociable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But hey, so no, I mean, like, obviously it's a very depressing message, and I think that the point of the film is not so much to make us all miserable and depressed. I think the point of the film is to honestly, just keep in mind our own mental health as we're living.
Yeah, I think it's an awareness message.
Yeah,
Right? Be aware. Yeah, the system's kind of this shit, but everyone's in the same system together.
Yeah, but be aware of it, and do whatever you need to do to cope with it yourself. But yeah, I don't think it's about let's all be depressed and go and think about suicide. I think it's no, just be aware of it, understand why it's the way it is, and just take care of yourself.
Yeah, I think it's saying maybe even don't necessarily try and fight the system too hard, like he does at first, because you might end up worse off if you can accept it and find some sort of happiness. Because at the end, he's kind of happy, right? He's like, oh, I found something. I can go and share. I can share this with people.
Yeah, I mean, as the depressing ending that he wants to go and. Because if you look at it in the context of the movie, he wants to. It's basically Stockholm syndrome. He wants to go and give his captors like, "Hey, I did something good. Give me a treat."
Yeah,
like
no,
this.
It is depressing when you look at it like that. But I think you could choose to look at it as, I mean, he's more content now. I mean, even at the start of the movie, he wasn't content because he was. We had that monologue about all the systems. Where now he is. So maybe in some ways that's better for him.
Yeah. Yeah, find it's the idea that you're rebellious when you're younger, and then you get some sort of, and it obviously goes different for different people, but yeah, the idea that some people get to a certain age and they become a bit more relaxed with life because they accept certain things and work within.
You're like, well, I've only got so much time left. What's the point? I might enjoy what I can rather than try and do that.
Yes.
Enjoy what you can instead of long for what you can't have. I guess is what it's saying at some points. And
of course, help us circumvent this misery by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/MilfuzTV. Come on, that was perfect. That was a perfect segue to Patreon.
It was.
That was perfect.
I'll even let it slide that we didn't do the ratings yet.
Yeah, we'll do the ratings. Well, I've forgotten the ratings, but it was too good a segue. But you can go to patreon.com/MilfuzTV. You can support what we do here. If we give you a small release from the misery that is your day-to-day life, whether that's just something to watch when you're at home and going to sleep, or you listen to it in your commute because you want something to, or if you're like Tim, who gets to listen to podcasts when he's at work all day, which sounds great to me. I don't know. Yeah,
depending on the day I'm in and what I'm doing that day, I do sometimes get to listen to podcasts or music, which is nice.
Sounds like the dream of me. I don't know.
It's like 1.5 days out of 5 or 6. Though.
No, wait. Now I sound like Junpei though, because I'm like, I know. See, I'd rather not have the soul crushing job, but I'm like, no, if I'm going to listen to a podcast,
have the job, then if I can listen to podcasts, yeah.
But
it makes the day a bit better.
So. Yeah, we should rate. I mean, obviously Patreon. Yeah, I mean, help us out. Go support us if you like what we do. And you get some bonuses. You get to vote once a month, like this episode was. You get to vote. The voting this month for the next one, it's 4 films that were high ranking on our last countdown, our last top 50, which was the top 50 movies in the 90s. The movies were as follows: Eyes Wide Shut, Shawshank Redemption, Silence of the Lambs, and The Truman Show. And those are the 4 that are up for vote right now. The reason why that's happening is because we've made this new tradition where whenever we're doing the next countdown, we have the vote be 4 films from the last countdown that we've not reviewed yet. So that's what's happening. So yeah, we're doing a countdown at the end of the month. We're going to do a top 50 world cinema, or foreign language if you want to sort of phrase it more accurately. But world cinema just sounds better. And that is what we're going to do at the end of the month. So that's kind of why we picked a bunch of foreign films this month. This is just a coincidence actually, because this was up against other non-foreign films, but
yes,
here we are. Yeah. So go to Patreon and have a look at all that stuff. You can look at the vault. You can look at other stuff you get early. Even $1 a month is a great help. Of course, if you don't want to do it that way, if you can't support us on Patreon, don't feel too bad. You can, of course, watch the ads on YouTube. Turn off your ad block, watch the ads, and obviously liking, subscribing, commenting, all that stuff does help. But so it's weird that I did that first. But now let's roll back and rate the film.
Cycle all the way back round.
Yeah, let's do that.
So that's what you did there. The trick is, they had to listen through the spiel to get the final result. You're giving them something, a little consolation afterwards for sticking with us.
A post-plugging scene, if you will.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So would you rate it out of 10?
I'm gonna give it a 9. I think it's excellent.
Yeah, I'll agree with a 9. I think the 9's is apt. So might this appear on one of our top 50s at the end of the month, or both of our top 50s? You will find out then. Come back for more. exciting. Anyway, but that is Women in the Dunes. You can, of course, check it out for yourself if you've not seen it. So yeah, we're done. That's the episode.
Yeah, you don't know how to end this now. You don't know what you're plugging.
I don't know my plugging. Yeah, usually I transition to plugging after the ratings, but I've done that already. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You can get me on Twitter at Wibble89. You can get Connor on Twitter at ConnorRyan94. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.